All right. Well, over the holidays, boys and girls, we're back for another YouTube lecture by Professor James Carville. We're going to go over some things that make you aware of some things that maybe you haven't heard of, and why I believe that they're important for you to know and very important for the future of the country. The first name that I want you to know, and I don't know if you remember in The Godfather, one of them, Michael Corleone, says, how do you get out of this business? You know, when you're in the mob, there's no way to retire. Well, when you're pointing out the hypocrisy of these right-wingers, you can't retire because they just keep giving you material. But it's our job to do this. As disgusting as putrid as this job might be, we have to continue to do it. The first person whose name I want you to know is Claire Schillinger. That's why you never heard of Claire Schillinger. Maybe you have heard of Claire Schillinger. Claire Schillinger is from a place called Doylestown, Pennsylvania, is in what they call Lower Bucks. It's Bucks County. It's further down the Delaware River. It's right north of Philadelphia. And if you remember the Ziegler, Mrs. Bridget Ziegler, who was a big Moms for Liberty, who jumped into a pile with a husband and another woman, and we certainly marked that and pointed that out. Now, Claire Schillinger is another one of the founders of the Moms for Liberty. Very, very, very big. Was on the Bucks County School Board. Spent hundreds of thousands of dollars electing book burners in Pennsylvania, and she's very, very, extremely concerned about youth and the way that youth behave in examples. It doesn't appear, it's a fact, that Miss Schillinger had a daughter in high school, and they had a party at her house, and the kids were being served rum and vodka in prodigious amounts. And one young high school student, I think it was a boy, tried to leave, whereupon Mrs. Schillinger punched him in the face. Now, you can look this story up. I'm going to recommend that the best coverage of this I've seen is on a site called Talking Points. A guy named Josh Marshall has been around forever. Very, very bright, learned. I think he's got a PhD in history from some fancy schmancy school. But he's a very knowledgeable, very thoughtful guy. And he has, on Talking Points memo, the best coverage of Miss Schillinger. And it's very important that you know this so you can understand how these Moms for Liberty are either jumping in a pile with another woman or slugging our youth in the face or whatever they do. So let's keep the name Claire Schillinger here. You notice we got white, red, white, blue, because we're Americans. And we're going to go to our education, and we're going to continue on things that they don't tell you, but I tell you. Jared Woodfill. Okay, who in the hell is Jared Woodfill? All right, if you remember our friend Paul Pressler. Now, Paul Pressler, as you recall from earlier lectures, was going to have the law school at Louisiana Christian University named after him. And Mike Johnson, the current Speaker of the House, was going to be the dean of the law school. It seems that Mr. Pressler, and we discussed this before, had a certain affinity for young boys. And go to the Texas Tribune, which should always read the Texas Tribune. It's much better than the shit you see in national papers. Apparently, the Southern Baptist Convention and the insurers decided they were going to pay off all of these people who I guess they're not alleged were abused anymore because we paid off the judgment. Of course, we'll never know how much it is, but the attorneys for the young people who were molested was a law firm called Baker & Botts. It was like Jim Baker, a huge Houston law firm, and very competent attorneys that represented them, and they expressed glee at the amount of the settlement. But Mr. Pressler's law partner was a man named Jared Woodfill, who was former chairman of the Harris County Republican Party, a very distinguished, holy, family values guy, whose defense was, I want you to get this, that, well, Paul Pressler, he was, the farm was called, I think, Pressler and Woodfill, but all they did was supply him with a boy every year. And I didn't realize this, but Paul Pressler lived in River Oaks, which, if you're not worth, I don't know, $50 million, you couldn't buy a house in River Oaks. And further, he was a member of the River Oaks Country Club. I have no idea what it costs to be in a River Oaks Country Club. But from what I know, he was a judge in the Texas State Judiciary. I have no idea of how a judge of any kind, even a Supreme Court justice, in no way that they could afford to live in River Oaks. But my guess is, in addition to fondling young boys, there was some money that was going on back and forth. But Mr. Woodfill was supplying, if you read the article, it's pretty clear that he was supplying Judge Pressler, whatever they call this criminal, molester, and there were shenanigans apparently going in the sauna room at the River Oaks Country Club. I've actually been inside of it as a guest, and I don't think they let me in there other than as a guest, and at lunch I'm sure I couldn't eat dinner there, neither could you. But I want you to follow the Texas Tribune coverage of the Paul Pressler molestation payola. Now, when you read that article, you're gonna read about something called the Council for National Policy. And you say, what is the Council for National Policy? Well, this is a highly influential, secretive, influential right-wing organization that exists till this day. Interestingly enough, its first president, I think, and we go back to our original lecture because I'll get to this, why you don't get this information. The first president was somebody I talked about in my first lecture, Louis Woody Jenkins, who still lives in Baton Rouge. Its current head is Tony Perkins. Remember Tony Shetland Pony. And of course, the whole freak show is involved in that. They are very, very powerful. And we don't know what their membership is. The Southern Poverty Leadership Council got into something back in 2014. You can look it up. But when you read the national press, I was reading the New York Times website today. There must be 7 stories on Harvard. Oh, my God. Now, if you think about priorities, Harvard is very wealthy, powerful, prestigious, academically excellent university. It has the largest endowment of any university in the United States, I dare say any university in the world. I think I'm right on this. And it has a $55 billion endowment. The New York Times can't stop covering it. You would think that the most important person in the whole goddamn United States is the president of Harvard. All right, so they get some constipated academic that gets sandbagged by her own lawyer, and they just can't stop. You know how much the federal government spends? $6.3 trillion. Now, somebody at home, do the math and divide 55 billion into 6.3 trillion, and you'll get an idea of the power discrepancy that we're talking about. So we're going to get into more interesting things. I just can't get out of covering the hypocrisy of these people, and I can't get out of the fact that our press and our media, the people that are supposed to be the guardians of this democracy, they talk about guardrails and institutions, and the Harvard Corporation, the oldest corporation, it was founded in 1650. The power of the Harvard Corporation compared to the federal government ain't shit. Ain't shit. And who even cares? what the Harvard Corporation does, and if it's the Harvard Board of Overseers, or what it calls something like a plantation or whatever they run up there, I have no idea. And we're not doing a good enough job of getting to you, the public that really cares about this country, that's really vested in its future, that really shares our values of pluralism, that really shares our values of education. You know, we don't like book burners, and they're going to keep there jerking themselves off, covering Harvard infinitesimally. If I was Yale, I'd be a little jealous. I don't know why they can't get covered. So I'm on to his, or Stanford, or one of these other places. I have no idea. But I'm going to let the prestigious press inform you about what's going on with the administration of Harvard University and why that's critical. And I'm going to continue to inform you about information about how this country is governed and what's going on around the world. So we have many different, some of them exciting things to do going forward. But I wanted to take this first opportunity of 2024 to bring you up to speed on matters that are critical to the United States, and not this ancillary sideshow that you're being entertained with in the newspapers and the nightly news. So we're going to continue. We look forward to seeing you, and we'll be back next week with some more entertaining, and I hope you'll find insightful lectures explaining to you what's really going on in the United States, who really has the power, who's really influencing people, and we should not be distracted from these issues, but we should embrace them and take them head on. Thank you very much.